All right, the next topic in our series of precision measuring and tool usage and care for students in my manual drivetrain and automatic transmission classes is dealing with high amounts of torque. If you have a manual transmission output shaft nut or a pinion nut that has a crush sleeve that we need to crush, it can take 200, 300, 400 foot-pounds of torque to tighten that nut or to crush that particular crush sleeve. So if you think you're going to do that with just like a half-inch drive ratchet, that's not going to happen. A typical crush sleeve will take around 350 pound-feet of torque to start crushing. And you should never, ever use an impact gun, electric or air-powered, no impact guns. You will cause something called bearing brittling. So instead, you need to use muscles and brains. So right here, I've got a 1 1/4 inch socket that happens to fit a whole bunch of axle pinion nuts, and I've got a half-inch drive ratchet handle here that is, I don't know, 12 inches long. That's only going to give me a certain amount of leverage to tighten that nut. But if I go with a 3 foot long ratchet, then that is going to give me even more leverage as I try to tighten the nut. Some of you may have heard of or seen someone else, you put a pipe on the end of one of these ratchets and tighten it up, and that although I've seen it work, I've also seen it break the ratchets. They're not made for that amount of torque. And so the ratchets that are made for that amount of torque are the 3/4 inch drive ratchets and the 1 inch drive ratchet. Now this particular ratchet is a 3/4 inch drive ratchet, and I've got a 3/4 inch drive socket here to go with it. It's got a 2 foot handle, and if that's not enough length, then it's got a little button you push right here, take the handle out, and you can buy a 4 foot handle and put in there, and now you've got a 4 foot 3/4 inch drive ratchet for really tightening something tight. And they make torque wrenches up to 3/4 inch and 1 inch drive also that have almost a 6 foot long handle to go with it to get up into the 600 foot-pounds of torque and so on. Well, there's an easier way to tighten or loosen things that are really tight or have a high amount of torque, and that is done with another tool right here called a torque multiplier. This particular torque multiplier is from Snap-on. It's part number GA184A, and this is a 4-to-1 torque multiplier, which means it has a half-inch drive input and a 3/4 inch drive output. You're going to have to turn this input 4 times to get 1 turn of the output. So that's the 4-to-1 torque multiplier. They also make a 16-to-1, a 64-to-1, and even higher torque multipliers. Now there's a warning label right here, a caution label that says maximum output torque is 1,000 foot-pounds. The maximum input torque is 275 foot-pounds. It has a ratio of 4-to-1, but it says allow up to 20% loss in the tool for frictional losses inside the planetary gear set head that we have here. So we lose some accuracy. It's not exactly 4-to-1. We lose 20%. So at, let's say we're going to tighten something to 400 pound-feet or foot-pounds, 10% of 400 is 40. 20% would be 80. So if we subtract 80 from 400, it would really only torque it to 320 foot-pounds rather than 400 that you might think. So if we put 100 on the input and expect to get 400 out with a 4-to-1 torque multiplier, it doesn't work like that. You'll only get, well, it says allow 10 to 20%. You're going to be in a range. So the torque multiplier, as I said, has a planetary gear set inside of it that gives us a 4-to-1 gear reduction, which gives us a 4-to-1 torque multiplication minus the frictional losses. So what we do is we grab the appropriately sized socket and put on here, and then you'll use a 1/2-inch drive torque wrench, which I forgot to bring a torque wrench, but a 1/2-inch drive torque wrench to torque it, or if you just need to tighten or loosen something, a 1/2-inch drive breaker bar or ratchet. And as you turn this, as you try to tighten it, these handles are going to want to go in opposite directions. So you're going to have to hold on tight to both of them as you tighten it. But it makes it roughly 4 times easier to loosen something that's really tight, and it makes it roughly 4 times easier to tighten something to a certain amount of torque with a torque multiplier. So if you do much heavy work at all and you learn that impact guns ruin things and you want to do it the right way, a torque multiplier is the way to go.